Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to do a remix or get into the building blocks of doing a remix for a MIDI file that you found online. A song that you always wanted to play, but maybe, you don't have the finger skills on the keyboard to play all the tracks, or you just, don't want to sit down and listen to everything and just write it, and you just want to get right into it. You don't want to use some of the copyrighted material, of the actual file of the actual orchestra that they're using, and you want more like standalone sounds. And you can do that with anything, with a pop song, with Kelly Clarkson, Katy Perry, whatever you want, even some jazz tunes, and then do a drum and bass remix or something like that. So first of all, the one that I like because it's great for synthesizers, Mission Impossible. Remember that one? Right, this guy is always dangling off of some cliff or dangling off of something. That's Tom Cruise as we know him. But the original series that they are is amazing too, with Peter Graves. That sound is just so funky and suspense, yet it's a complete song. So the original was done by a he's Russian, I think, Lalo Schifrin. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look for, let's go back to Google, MIDI fillet, right? MIDI file. And I found this one here in free-midi.org. So somebody already took the time, study it, study the entire song and wrote it. Now here's a couple of things. Sometimes these files have mistakes, they don't get paid, so, we can't complain. They use sounds maybe on an arranger keyboard like MIDI GM in the MIDI GM format, Yamaha, Casio sounds that sound great on that particular keyboard, but that's not what our remix stations are geared for. Anyways, you could click on this and it would download it. I don't like clicking on things to download automatically. I always like to right click on it. So download linked file as. So I am going to download as into a MIDI file. I already have it, so I did that before. Now the next thing is, then after you download it, which software do you use to play it back? You could use Garageband. You can just drop this file into Garageband and it will open up beautifully. No questions about it. Let me actually show that. So here's GarageBand. We're going to do a new project, and let's just say there's something loops, and then we're going to open up this MIDI file with GarageBand, and then it comes out like this. It comes out like nothing. Great. So here's the MIDI file, right, that we just downloaded. Let's grab this, drag it in here, and voila. GarageBand kind of beautifully imports it, but beautifully only graphically, because if you play it back, I'm going to reduce this here so our speakers don't blow out. Yeah, right? That really sounds like Mission Impossible. Now what happened here is that GarageBand didn't understand, couldn't read the sounds properly, didn't know what is what, the grand piano, yet the track itself was labeled strings. This was labeled as flute and brought up a grand piano. So it's completely messed up. Logic does a better job at this, and it depends which DAW you're using. The fact of the matter is you have to spend some time with it. The string, the flute, that little boop sound, depending on what sound you want, you'll have to find a way to sort of like find that and make it your own. So and that's the beauty of this whole working with MIDI files and remixing with MIDI files, is that you're dealing with the sounds, with the feel, and so forth. But you don't have to worry about, the flute part, like right here, the flute part and the score, right? So that's already taken care of for you. All right, so let's quit GarageBand. Let's work with what we actually want to work with. And I already started a little bit. So let me do this. Let me go back to Mission Impossible. Here it is. I went ahead and did a little bit of, sound searching on that. Don't download. So what's up with that? So my Logic, I think Logic has so much content by now, and I also have Contact, native instruments, and all that stuff. I don't want to download every sound unless I know what sound it is before I actually download it. I don't have that option right now. So for now, I usually say don't download. But I'm sure they're great. So this is how it opens up in Logic. So if we play that back, I can already hear what it is. I know this is Mission Impossible. Anyways, so I looked at that and said, you know what? The flute is a very characteristic part and the bass is a very characteristic part. If you listen to the flute, so first of all, nothing's happening here because that there's no sound here. That means the sound, the EXS24 that's being triggered here doesn't understand, doesn't know how to play a sound back for it. Different story on the bass. That's an ES2. So it's hit and miss, and then probably the drums are going to be all over the place because it doesn't quite understand. And here's a sound that sounds a little bit like it might be a fit. Let me that bass is so obnoxious. So with that in mind, you know, Fantasia, we don't know what Fantasia means. We have sort of an idea what part the MIDI file writer had in mind. So great, let's get to work. I went ahead a little bit and changed some of the things out. So first of all, I found some sort of a flute replacement. Let me show you that. And I used an organ. Yeah, I just loved it. And then I found for the bass an upright bass. So the upright bass is an EXS24, which is Logic's sampler. It comes in a little bit dark. So I'm opening up the cutoff here. This would be all in your face, which is what I don't want. I want to have it a little bit in the background. And then the attack. So it's a little fast for me. So what we're going to do here is for that whole track, we're going to delay it a little bit. Now this is sort of a gamble that I'm taking right now because, you know, the flute might be a little bit fast, and, you know, then, you know, the bass might be right on. But sort of, you know, the bass seems a bit rushed to me. And this was designed probably for a synthesizer, you know, for an arranger keyboard. That C of Tranquility, tranquility, right? Tranquility, I love it. Can deal with that for now. Gives me sort of an idea, but now the feeling sort of with these things, I always like to go to the drums right away, and you saw the drums just didn't work. There was so much other stuff going on. So let me solo the drums. Oh yeah. So the drums, basically, I looked through you know, the drum kits. I decided to go for an acoustic drum set. And there were some notes in there that just don't make sense for Logic. There were these notes, and you cannot hear them because I muted them. They always resulted in some sort of a bass, you know, wobble. Let me show you this really quickly because the drum kits, so this drum set here is actually an Ultra Beat, the old Ultra Beat that you know from Logic 7, 8, 9. So let me look at Ultra Beat here, right? And so a lot of the sounds here it would be triggering this song. Actually kind of interesting, but let's say I didn't want that, and every other drum kit that I brought up had some sort of bass sound in there. And then I had this sound as well. So it would sound like this out of the box. Right, so very hard. So that's not what I want. At least not at this point. And just note that Ultrabeat is not playing its own pattern. Has nothing to do with it. We're just using the sampling unit, the sounds. What I also did, I changed the snare. Snare before came in at, I think, C sharp. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. There's another part here. Okay, that actually works for me. And there's this nasty clap in there. So double click, we can double click on that, and you can obviously also modify the sequence. Out of nowhere comes this weirdo clap, right? So I click on it. Here it is. That's the one, and it's going to eliminate it throughout the entire MIDI file. Okay, I can work with that. There's no effects on this whatsoever at this point. Bring it in the background. And let's see what other parts do we have here. So this is labeled as a strings part, right? So this is an extremely loud strings part, which is here mapped as a retro synthesizer. I did that. I'm not sure if it was a good idea, just when starting up the software. Now let's look at pads probably. Let's look at this. Let's browse a little bit. Gives a little bit of a mystery feeling. So sound-wise, let's see. We can, you know, scroll a little bit. Pads. Check out a few other sounds that could be interesting here. And that's synth strings, for example, bright strings. Doesn't do it for me. Bright strings, retro strings. There's a softness to it. Okay. Let's bring back the drums here. I like the organ a lot, so I could focus the whole thing on the organ. I think the organ should have a little bit of distortion. What do you guys think? Yeah. Bring it out a little bit more. I'm starting to clip here. A little bit of a reverb. That was already set up, so I might as well use it. Oh, let's relabel this. Organ. Bad A. Bad R's. Organ. Alright. So let's go back here. Oh, there's something. You can see these things here. These are MIDI controller information. So there's something going on here. And it doesn't sound really great. Let's go back here. Cool. Let's keep working on that sound here a little bit. So what else is in there? So So this is a crazy section here that's definitely not working for me. So what I like to do, I like keeping it minimalistic. That's sort of my way out of getting stuck in like all these sounds that don't work, and then I have to like, really, super, like edit. Let's look at this part here really quick. This seems to be the chorus or bridge. Yeah, that's where the organ needs a bit more bite. Of course, the drums at that point need to start to be a lot brighter and bigger. So, a good idea would be to, at this point, insert maybe a drummer track. And let's move it up here. A bit more natural. Alright. Let's turn that off for a second. Let's have these guys just play against each other. Alright. So now I can edit that drum set a little bit. That SoCal kit. Here we go. It's a kick drum. Bring down the master a little bit. Play with the tuning. Snare. So this is the snare from here. And this is my acoustic snare player. A lot better. There you go. Okay. Yep, that brings so much life to it. They work together. That works. And now let's bring back our organ. Bring the bass back a little bit. Organ too. And the nice thing with drummer is you can, it makes its fill sort of automatically. It's a good guiding drummer to work with until you have time to program your own drums, which is obviously always recommended. I like working in native instruments, a studio drummer. But see, here's what's happening. If you want a break, all you need to do, let's say, alright, so let's say we want to break here. What you do is you split it here. Now watch. So, and you click here, and then you want it to be heavy fills. So, increase the fills rate. See? So basically, when you tell the drummer in Logic X, says, okay, well, I'm going to do fills at the end of every sort of clip region, and the more you crank this up, the heavier that fill is going to be played, the busier it's going to get. But by cutting it up, you basically have control when he plays that fill, if he even plays a fill. We'll do that in a second again. Hit me. And let's say we wanted to have a fill right here already. Right here. Right? And we crank this up as a super heavy fill here. Watch this up. little bit too heavy for me. Alright, so let's go back to the Sea of Tranquility. That doesn't work for me at all. First of all, it's panned the wrong way. Let's do... yeah, FM. Synchronize it. Oscillators. This is me the first time using it as well, so... there's a nice panning pattern. So we can pan it center here, and then it's going to do its own thing. It's one song, and then we have the retro strings that I was battling with before. Let's check these out. So this gets really weird now. I'm going to do a polyphonic synthesizer. How about that? And then let's look up a sound, big sweep. Way more interesting even without drums. So the possibilities are definitely there to make your own. I always recommend that. Thanks for quickly checking in. I hope that gives you an inspiration. This works with any MIDI file, with any song that you can find. Make it your own, tweak it, throw it into Machine, throw it into Ableton after that, and do your own variations and flavors on it. Don't try to sound like the original. Do us all a favor. Bye. MIDI fillet, MIDI file, filet o MIDI. You get it, right? You got it? Cool.